What is good, YouTube? It's Aaron back here with the channel, and today we're going to be doing everyone's favorite video, a tier list discussion over the Set 1 champions. I brought my good friend on NA45. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm great. My name is Fritz Copes, a longtime friend of Aaron. We came from Yu-Gi-Oh together and really getting into this Riftbound game. It is a lot of fun, so I'm excited to be here doing some content with Aaron.
Yeah, so he has been commentating a weekly tournament on the Rifts and Runes channel. So he has a lot of experience in watching a lot of the decks that I have less experience in, like some of the lower tier decks. So he's going to be taking a lot of ownership over that, giving me a little bit of insight on it, and then we're going to talk about the meta, which is what I'm much more familiar with. So let's hop right into it. Before we get into it, it's going to be why, or I'm going to give us the criteria as to why these champions are rated the way they are. It is primarily the card pool. Like, it is set one. We're pretty limited in terms of accessibility to cards. I think it's 300 cards in set one, so you do not have too many options for each color. And then from there, we've got the leader's ability, and then obviously the signature spell. So those are going to be the three primary factors. And then at the end, we'll have a little bit of a discussion of how well do these cards translate into a deeper card pool, and we'll see if they're going to move up or forward or backwards in the future. So let's start off with the champions, or the cards, or sorry, the card pools that have two different leaders. So we've got Lee Sin and Master Yi. So this is green and orange. Fritz, give us your initial thoughts.
Yeah, so Lee Sin, one of the structure decks. If you went to a pre-release event, you'll know that your options were Lee Sin, Victor, and Jinx. And the common consensus was that Lee was a middle of the road, not bad, not great. He does share colors with Yi. Definitely has some solid colors, right? Because Calm and the body has access to like Defy. It has the Poros, as everyone's favorite armored idiot. The 2-drop for attacking into. You have access to the Lee Champion, so the Lee Champion unit is pretty decent. It's a body accelerates. Honestly, I personally think that Lee is okay, but it's mostly because of his colors. And I think that the orange green colors, at least in the first set, are pretty decent. Even though his leader ability is kind of like, it's not really great. It's going to give you value every turn, but at the same time, it requires a board, but it's like you do have to pay for it. It's not free like some of the other leaders. So personally, I would rate Lee. He's kind of near the bottom, honestly, right now. But it's less because like he's awful, but more because you have Yi who shares the same colors and is like, so probably in C tier for me. Do you have any thoughts, Aaron?
No, I mean, when I first read it, I was like, the ability isn't bad, but as I've started learning, like, the set leader ability is just kind of a more efficient utilization of the buff mechanic. And then obviously the Yi leader is just more efficient in terms of both the colors, and then what it provides is just an inherent effect that is also more powerful. So there's not really too many reasons to play it over another orange deck at this point, from what I've seen. So that leads us right into Master Yi, who is the same colors and just an overall powerhouse in set one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Yi, everyone knows him at this point. There are a couple different variations of the deck. You have the mid-range deck that plays a bunch of 2-drops, like again, the annoying Poro everyone hates. It plays maybe like a Kiana, or even starts ramping right up into like the Tasty Faithful, the Dead Blooms, even the White Flames. And then you have the high end that just eliminates those low costs, and you still play like the Catalyst. You can even play Mobilizes. Green has one of the best ramp cards in the game with Find Your Center, a draw and a ramp. Excellent card. And then late game, it just becomes a cycle for one. And then there is the Aurora version, which I'm an absolute hater of, but it has seen success in China. Obviously a top tier hero. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is very easily like the second best, if not first best. Like, I think it's primarily the card pool. Like I said, like, you get to have all the green good cards. Like you said, you've got Find Your Center, you've got Defy, you've got Charm, and then like Fey Folk, you've got the ramp, and then on the other end of the spectrum, you've got the orange, which takes advantage of all that ramp, right? Like, you've got Aurora, which again, me and you are not the biggest fan of in the deck personally, but you get cards like just whatever is the top end. Dead Bloom Predator is one of the biggest offenders of the early meta and how strong it is. So
Yeah,
I think,
and
yeah, like, comfortably second best deck right now. Sorry.
there's one thing kind of interesting about the green orange is that Lee Sin does have something going for it, and there is a non-meta deck right now that potentially we'll talk about a bit later, but there is like a protect the president Lee Sin build that
Hmm.
does exist and does potentially have some merit. So at the end, we can talk about that and if Lee would get better in
Yeah.
future sets.
Yeah, because the one thing that Yi doesn't really have going for it is its signature spell is a bit underwhelming. So
Yes.
potential, like this is a leader that I think right now just takes advantage of it being a very consistent, strong ability. But this isn't something
Hmm.
that I expected like translate too well as card pool gets wider and I'd say card
Yes.
quality gets higher. So definitely
Yep.
strong right now, and we'll see how it translates. And then we've got orange, yellow. We've got Garen and Set. So Garen is, I think, the butt of every joke where everyone just understands that why would you ever play Garen when you've got Set and just in general this color combination is a bit underwhelming in the current meta.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. Garen, there isn't really too much to say besides Garen is just the worst hero and the worst legend in the game by far. Not only is the legend really bad, you aren't realistically proccing his leader ability more than like once a game, if that. But you also have one of the worst leader or champion units with Yellow Garen being a straight downgrade from Yellow Darius. There's really not much to say here besides I'm sorry, Garen fans, but at best, your deck is like an Aurora carrier. Like your deck is just it doesn't really work, unfortunately, especially when compared to the other color, which is set of the same colors. Because set has a very good leader ability. Conversely,
Yeah, yeah, 100%. So yeah, we can hop into Set, who has a very good signature spell and also just like a very good color combination for or sorry, not color combination, but like the leader ability is just absurd. For those who are unaware, it is if your unit is buffed and it would die, I think it's like pay a power and then like just recall the unit, so just like play it back in base for free. And you get to take advantage of some very strong units, cards like Kiana, which is hard to out for a deck like Kaisa. Obviously, like the sets, both of them are both playable units, which you have access to through your ability or through your leader, and then also the signature spell is I think Showstopper is the name of it, right? And it's just like
yeah,
buff and ready a unit for 1/1, which I think is very strong and easy to take advantage of in the deck. So where would you place this?
yeah. I would definitely put set in like the B tier specifically because it has a really good Kaisa matchup. I think the deck is like almost good to be an A, but right now it has a bit of a resource problem where if you do not specifically have Monastery as your battlefield, you don't have a ton of draw. It's literally like Hidden Blade, and you just kind of run out of cards eventually, which, I mean, it sucks. The deck does kind of bleed advantage. There are a few builds that try and mitigate that. Like there's a Divine Judgment build that just plays triple Divine Judgment and says, hey, I'm not going to have cards, but neither are you. And my leader is better in a simplified game state than you. And Set is one of the few leaders that has an effect that cannot be replicated through like the card pool, really. It is something that is like special and unique to him. And by playing the Set leader, you get access to that. It's not like Yi is just saying, well, my units are bigger, right? Like that's not
Mm-hmm.
that's not a really unique mechanic. There are ways to do that with the cards, but with Set, like the only comparison is really like Hourglass, and that's like a one-time use thing. You don't get consistent value out of that. So
Yeah, when I first read it, I was very impressed by the card quality. Like there was a good
mhm.
person at our locals who I played against, and I was like, oh, this deck just like it has selling points. Like this is a unique deck. It's not just like a worse version of a different deck. And it has a card that I think is seeing a little bit less play than it probably should. Divine Judgment, which is very strong, and able to kind of like take advantage of maybe some decks that require top end, which it seems a lot of the decks right now are ramping and definitely more towards that control end of the spectrum.
Yep.
So maybe if you build this deck a little more aggressively and take advantage of Judgment, there's ways to make it work, but I think it's maybe just a little bit underpowered in terms of the card pool right now, but I think its leader ability is good. It translates over time, and we'll see
Mhm.
if it gets better over time. So yeah, from there we've got purple red. We've got both Jinx and Annie, and I have very limited experience with Jinx. Annie, I think, has some neat mechanics, and yeah, let me know what your thoughts are.
So Jinx can be built a few different ways, and unfortunately, most of them are just worse versions of Annie, like a very aggressive deck that goes for a ride the win Vi endgame. That being said, there is discard Jinx, which I think is a has a bit of a problem in that the card pool doesn't really support it yet. We can talk more about that in the future at the end of the video. But I honestly would put Jinx down kind of in D with Garen just because she's really her leader ability is very inconsistent. It's inherently inconsistent, right?
Mhm.
Because by having to go down to one or even zero cards, that means that you are you're relying on your top deck every single turn. And this is not a game like, again, we came from Yu-Gi-Oh where cards are consistently finding other cards and finding other cards. Having cards that are just straight like plus ones in Riftbound is not, it's not the most common thing. There are some of them, but it's not the most common thing, right? So
Yeah.
being forced to uh, lose all your resources every turn if you want your leader to do anything just feels really bad. And unfortunately, it like you're sharing colors with Annie, so it's not even like you have an exclusive color combination.
Yeah, it just inherently the idea of like being on low card economy and kind of like being forced to top deck your way through the game seems very inconsistent and volatile, and not something that I'd really want to generate a game plan around. Even if you have cards like Vi, which are like strong payoff, like there's just other decks that can take advantage of that card without that volatility. So I think it's probably what bottom, top of D, lower end of C, just in terms of what it provides.
She's definitely better than Garen just because of her colors, but like other than that, it's pretty down there, unfortunately, I think.
And then, like you kind of acknowledge, Annie, I think, is a deck that has, like, there's really good cards in this color combination. There's cards like Falling Star, there's Ride the Wind, like, there's a lot of, like, if you look at the top 10 cards in the game, like, she can play, like, we'll say, like, 2 or 3, if not 4 of them. So that's, like, the selling point for her. Like, when I read this card, I'm like, oh, this is just, like, a good effect. You get to restand 2 mana at the end of your turn. And your goal is obviously to be a bit aggressive, but I think, again, like, the meta is so top-heavy, and just, like, the mechanics of Runeterra, or sorry, not Runeterra, I'm so sorry, Riftbound, you are required to play multiple turns of a game, right? Like, you can't win any faster than, like, turn 5. That's being generous. It's probably more likely 6 or 7. So it's really difficult, from my perspective, to see aggressive decks, like, consistently winning, at least under the current card pool. Like, there's aren't enough, like, high-quality good units that either, like, play yourself to a battlefield and are like you're just gonna get eventually gaps. Like, even if you get to 6 or 7, you can't cheat out a win because of cards like Dead Bloom and whatever. Like, they're just gonna eventually like clear you and then just like set up a board, and if you're not able to remove them in a meaningful way, like, it's just too hard to win.
Yeah, Annie is pretty powerful. I would say she's actually one of the better decks and has seen some good success in China and both the tournaments that have been happening here before Houston. So I definitely think she would be like an A tier deck, specifically because her champion ability, just or her leader ability, is just so powerful. It kind of makes up for having a pretty lackluster. I guess she has like a signature unit, doesn't she? It's not even a spell because it's a, I believe it is Tibbers, but but her leader ability is just so insane. Two free runes every single turn is a ton of value. And again, having access to the Vi Ride the Wind does leave you with like an insane closer for an aggressive deck. So you don't end up losing to these like tall decks because you're just swinging in with a 20 plus might Vi that just there's no real answer for that in either of the best decks. So she does have like a silver bullet, and on top of the 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 legend ability actually does provide a lot of value even in the early game because you can use stack deck, which is one of the best cards in the game. Just look at the top 3 cards essentially for free because she makes it cost 0 and it is an action, so you can use it on your opponent's turn. So so would you agree? I would put her like in A easily.
I think bottom of A, top of B. This is a deck that I haven't seen. Like, it does things that other decks don't do. Like you said, Vi Ride the Wind is just like such a difficult interaction to play around. Like, you just can't really do anything about it. Like, unless you're playing an Aurora deck and just stack like 20 might onto a battlefield, like, you're just gonna get kind of checked by it. Obviously, there's other purple decks, like maybe being able to play Fight or Flight and stuff like that. But like, if Annie is able to aggressively get to that 5 or 6 point stack early, then there's not too much you can do, especially if they're able to like sit there for a turn or two and kind of garner up the resources for that combo. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of unique in that regard where it does things that other top decks don't, so it has that going for it, and the leader ability is just strong. So if it is able to find consistency in its list, then I think there's definitely a chance for it to kind of show off.
Yep.
And then lastly, on the duo color leaders, we've got Victor and Lux. And Lux I've played against once. The leader ability isn't that bad. Like, cards, like, in the early parts of a game where cards are just, like, have good effects and like generate cards for free. Like, I think it's not like the Lux leader ability thing is like draw a card if you play a 5 cost or higher spell. That's solid. I think that may translate moving forward to being like a leader that is viable. But currently, just like the 5 cost or higher spell pool is like relatively underwhelming. We both have been trying to play Victor a little bit and have kind of learned that there aren't too many high quality spells in that like cost. So I'd say this leader's probably in like C tier, bottom of C, maybe top of C right now with the potential to get better with more cards.
Yeah, I think after thinking about it a little bit, I initially was saying she's like bottom of C, but thinking about it more, I think she really is just D right now, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing as she is a like top of D, I think she personally is better than Jinx, as I have played against Jinx a fair bit. At our locals, we have a lot of people who really like Jinx. Of course, she's from Arcane. But Lux, I like Lux's colors a little bit more, and her leader ability does not inherently rely on RNG. Like you can deck build around it. You are playing to ramp, so if you do make it to that end game, you do have like a leader that is pretty strong. It's just kind of reaching that point. Whereas the Jinx leader ability is so all in that it just feels if you miss, you can just lose the game. So conceptually, I think she does reward skill a little bit more than Jinx, which is why I would put her above it. But honestly, none of the decks in D you really should be bringing to an event if you are intent on winning. That being said, play what you want, right? So
Yeah, of course. So yeah, I mean, like this is just from a competitive perspective. If you are unable to get more cards or just trying to play for fun, like if you just love Jinx from Arcane, then God bless, live your best life. We're just looking at this from competitive perspective with Houston coming up soon, and that is our priority is preparing for that. So now we're looking at Victor, which is the same color combination with a higher quality leader ability. Just every turn you can generate a token, which yellow takes advantage of to a very high extent with cards like Back to Back and Grand Stratagem, and you obviously have the blue color, which can either help generate some removal. You can keep your card economy higher with whatever that hidden spell is. I forgot the name of it.
Hidden Blade.
And the Hidden Blade, also the other, the blue one that just draws 2. So you're able to do a lot. I think this deck, maybe initially I was a little higher on it. It's probably like, I think top of B if I had to guess. Like the card pool I think is a little weak, unfortunately. Like when you build the deck, it's probably like 30 to 33 good cards, and then those last 7, it's kind of hard to like really iron out what makes it strong or like makes it fill out those last slots.
Yeah, personally, I would put Victor in top of A. I think he's actually only a little bit below Kaisa and Yi.
Mm-hmm.
The reason being that one, you can just look at results. I mean, in China, you can't use results for everything, obviously, because regions aren't infallible. Decks cannot be undiscovered. That being said, Victor has been slowly rising up in rep, and even in the locals reports, which again, they are just locals, but he's kind of started matching Yi. And I think Victor leader ability is really, really powerful. And
Mm-hmm.
even the leader himself is a little bit undiscovered. And me and Aaron actually were doing some testing just a few days ago, and looking at the Shanghai results, there was a blue Victor in the top 50, which is just crazy, right? Because everyone's playing yellow Victor. But someone took a blue Victor deck that played it was like 10 units and 30 spells and got top 50 at a 2,000 person event. That clearly he was doing something right. You do not place that well with a pile of garbage. And I think that the Victor's leader ability is just so strong. It really does carry the deck. Like you're getting value every single turn, as well as having colors that work really well with that. Like Aaron said, with like the hidden blades, the back to backs that really enjoy these extra units, even if they are just 1/1s. So I really value Victor a lot, and I think this could be a regional winner. I think Victor has what it takes to be like a regional winning deck.
I agree. Like this is a leader that I anticipate being strong over the course of time too. Like I think it translates well. The card pool will get better, and this leader ability is just very strong. We'll see if you can convince me, because like when I've done some testing with and against the deck, I was like, I recognize there are good games. Like obviously when you're playing on War Camp as your battleground, you're in a very good spot. But similar to Set, if you're not on like that tier 1 battleground for you, are you able to find wins as consistently? And I'm concerned with that being the case. We'll see if that is if it ends up being that, because again, like the leader's strong. I just think whenever you're off of War Camp, it could be a way worse game for you. So we'll kind of see what Victor's able to cook up on those additional battlegrounds, because that is something that is very underexplored, I think, in the game, and we'll see what people are able to figure out. So now we get into the individual color combinations. We've got Teemo, which is blue-purple, so a bit more of a control, hidden style deck. What is your experience with this?
So Teemo's pretty cool in that the way Teemo's been played in the metagame has actually changed a lot. It started with I want to say the blue Teemo, and the blue Teemo is, if you don't know, it's hidden, and then it'll reveal hidden cards off the top of your deck, and then reduce a unit's might by that, or deal damage, essentially. But it actually shifted, and we saw at Shanghai, people were playing a purple Teemo deck that plays actually a fair bit of top end. And so what's cool with the Teemo deck is it acts kind of as a Dr. Mundo shell, and that sounds awful, right? Because you never want to hear that your deck is like the shell of a top end card. But Dr. Mundo is like so strong into even both the Yi and the Kaisa deck that that it just works. Like you'll just see these triple Mundo Teemo lists that just dig and dig and dig and put so many cards in the trash, and then it just pushes up a 25 might Mundo, Ride the Wind, again, very powerful card, and says, you can't out this, like Kaisa, you cannot deal 20 something damage in a turn. It doesn't matter if you have Watcher, it doesn't matter if you have Singularity. Time Warp does nothing, you can't move this off the point. And even against Yi, like Yi wants the fight. It says, my units are better than yours, but 20 Might Mundo is winning almost every combat, right? So I actually like Teemo. I think it's a pretty strong deck. I think that it rewards player skill a lot. There's a lot of little interactions with like Embered Monk and the hidden cards. And Embered Monk is also one of the best 4-drops in the game for its archetype. Can go up to an 8 might unit pretty freely. I would put Teemo up there with Annie, to be honest, just maybe a little bit lower, probably bottom of the tier. But I think Teemo is definitely viable. I don't know if I would say it can win a regional, but I think this deck could definitely top.
Yeah. Is the primary issue with it just consistency and just like bottom end card quality, or what are your thoughts on that?
So I don't have the most experience with actually piloting the deck. I've played against the deck a fair bit, and I will say that the builds do vary, and maybe someone just hasn't found the perfect 40 cards yet, and it will be solved eventually. But it did feel like if you fell behind early, it was pretty hard to catch up, because just based off the hidden mechanic, right? You can't hide cards when you don't have a battlefield.
Yeah.
So you are forced to either like aggressively use your fight or flights to push people off of battlefields, which you don't want to use. You'd rather use that as like a combat trick. And then at that point, like if I'm using fight or flight, push something back, push up my own unit, I'm down a card and 2 energy for trying to play the game. And then I still have to pay to hide the card. And if my opponent already has a board set up, I mean, that's pretty rough for me, right? Because then at that point, they're playing with all the resources, and I had to use potentially 3 resources to even try the play. So I think it's going to struggle with a lot of the really aggressive decks. Whereas if it hits an Aurora deck, that sounds very good for Teemo, to be honest. So
Speaking of decks that struggle to move bodies, Ari is up next, and this is a deck that I saw. It won some kind of, I think, tournament in the U.S. recently. The sample size is pretty small for America. It was a 22-man tournament, and I saw like a lot of Twitter discourse about how this leader's like got some potential, and I'm like, cool. And then I read it and I looked at the deck and I'm like, how do you ever like go second into a board? Like if they're just like an established unit. The cards that I read in the list, I was like, there's no way to like crack through an actual like established unit body, outside of just like charming the unit off of the base, which they didn't even main deck. So I was very confused as to what this unit's selling point is. Like I think the green and blue color pool is not bad, but I think both of those colors are just like good supporting colors in the current set, and they really need like another color to like facilitate that top end push, which I don't think Ari currently has.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think Ari has a really hard time of pushing into boards. It doesn't have like the Dead Bloom, which is like one of the key pieces of Yi of pushing into a board.
Yeah.
So you are forced to play stuff like, I mean, your equivalent is an Accelerated Watcher, which is an excellent card. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really fulfill the same role for me in the metagame. Whereas like the Dead Bloom, not only is like a good push, but when it's on the board, it's really sticky, right? Because
Yeah.
you have the deflect, and then you have like all the green buffs. But I don't really feel that Ari. I feel like Ari fills a similar role to Yi, but just does it worse, which is why I would rate her as like B, probably
Yeah.
middle, lower B.
I agree.
Um, I think she has maybe some potential with the green Ari, as it is something unique to her as of right now, the ability to kind of scam the game with extra points. But right now, I
Mm.
just don't think her colors really work. Like you said, it feels they're both supporting colors right now, not like a main color. So you don't
Yeah.
have that like really core of a deck. You're kind
Yeah.
of lacking something.
Yeah,
So
and when you talk about a card like Watcher really benefits from taking advantage of all of that like reduction in a deck like Kai'Sa, which we're about to discuss, like takes the fullest advantage where you're spending 8, but you still have 4 mana left. What are you doing with those 4 mana if you're at the top end? And you're just gonna Falling Star and wipe their board, or you're just gonna whatever Void Seeker and clear like this is there's a reason Kai'Sa is identified as the best deck, and even if like it has its own like flaws or shortcomings or whatever, like the leader ability is so efficient, the card pool is very strong, and it very consistently does what it wants to do. Like you could argue that maybe the Victor deck or the Teemo deck or even any like they have ways to cheat the game around it, but Kai'Sa will just so consistently perform its game plan, which is very efficient and very strong.
yeah, I'm a huge Kaisa fan. I personally, I'm either going to be taking Kaisa or Yi to Houston, and Kaisa is definitely an excellent option because she, like you said, she executes her game plan almost every game. And not only does she execute her game plan, but when she is executing her game plan, she has a lot of matchups that are just so free for her. You do not need to think at all. Like when you play against these combat focused decks, they just don't have options to like a turn 3 falling star, a turn 2 falling star. And then
Yeah,
you take board control, and then they're just struggling to come back, and you can just clear unit, clear unit, clear unit, and you're doing it at reduced cost. Like she has one of the best leader abilities in the game because, like Yi, it's just always there.
mm-hmm.
It's always giving you value, and the way you've constructed the deck, I mean, it's always giving value.
Yeah,
Whereas some of the more conditional leaders are, well, they're great when they go off, but maybe you can't get them off as much. So, and then, like we were saying with the uh, the Ari, the blue is a good supporting color. And in this case, blue paired with red, which is a very aggressive color, is perfect in this case because you get that really great blue support with like the Watcher, like draw off of the Stupefied, like the Recall card, which lets you be very efficient with your runes and your units.
yeah. Protect
And then you
Kai'Sa.
get
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And you get that paired with the really aggressive red. So I think that not only is her color combination really good, but like the leader is really good and she is one of the best champion units in the game. Accelerated draw one, like that's crazy.
Yeah, like this is a unit or a champion that is very good right now, and I don't anticipate falling off anytime soon. Like the color combination is very strong. It would take like a very big shift in terms of overall card quality for this leader to fall off, just due to how efficient and how strong it
Yep.
is. So, next up we have the other red deck of the meta. We got Darius, which is red yellow. I know you spent some time playing with this. So, what are your most updated thoughts on it?
Yeah, so I definitely overrated this deck a lot at the beginning. I think that it is a victim of having a very high ceiling but a very low floor. It is, which is not really what you want to see when you're playing an aggressive deck. As if you are not consistently executing your aggression, then you're just playing a deck that's losing to itself half the time because you cannot compete once a lot of the top end starts dropping later in the game. And because decks just naturally ramp by playing the game, like you're getting 2 runes every turn, they are going to hit their top end if you do not end the game.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is a very powerful leader ability. It has a very powerful card pool. Like red, yellow is very aggressive. It's just inconsistent. And not only is it inconsistent, but the cards that it plays are inconsistent as well. Because most Darius lists playing Hook. There was a Shanghai list that didn't. Very interesting. I don't personally like it. But when you're playing a deck that relies on hitting its early drops and then also hitting an RNG off the top, like it, you're just gonna have games you just lose. Like you can do nothing about it. If you hit your worst unit off of the hook, you whiff your turn 2 hook, you never hit a seals, so you're at 2 runes the entire game. There are a lot of ways things can go wrong for this deck, that make me not like it, especially as a competitive player, because when you're playing these long tournaments, you don't want to have rounds that you just auto lose.
Yeah.
So
So
those are
yeah,
my
I
thoughts.
think so I think this is a leader that will get better with time, like you said. Like the leader ability is very strong. I think the current card pool is just a little bit too weak for it to consistently compete with the top decks. Like if I'm gonna play an aggressive deck, I think Kaisa could fulfill that role a little bit better, or even a deck like Annie with Ride the Wind. But currently, I think good with a lot of potential, probably somewhere in like the middle of B tier, just due to like the volatility of its games.
Sure.
But yeah, like Bandit Hook, solid card, but I think right now you need a few more units to like really take advantage of like the cheating out of those cards. Next we've got Yasuo, which a deck that I kind of moved towards in the beginning. I think it's a very neat color combination. The leader ability I think is very strong. But yeah, I think the card pool maybe is a little bit too weak right now. But again, cards like Ride the Wind, Purple Yasuo I think is very neat. Like just cards that allow you to cheat the point mechanic I think are very strong, and we'll kind of see how they end up facilitating that moving forward. But I think right now it's somewhere probably in the B tier around Darius. Like I think it is solid, good, but probably a little bit underexplored, a little bit difficult to build optimally. And then again, when you're playing this color combination, I think you do kind of run out of cards at some point if you're unable to just kind of like steamroll your way through the early game and end it.
Yeah, Yasuo has a leader ability I like a lot, and both pretty solid champion units. He is one of the leader abilities that is useful at all points in the game, right? Like being able to move a unit is effectively giving anything in your deck accelerate for 2 energy, so you never have to deramp. And you do have access to stuff like Purple Yasuo again that just let you cheat the game, and cheating the game is crazy. So if you ever have the ability to cheat the game, I mean, there is some potential there. I
Yeah.
think Yasuo is pretty underexplored. I rarely see people playing this deck, and not only is he underexplored, the deck feels pretty. It feels on the upper end of difficulty in
Yeah.
that you have a lot of options with the Yasuo leader, and then you play all these movement cards as well. And your units also facilitate moving. So when you're playing these, you have so many actions you can take a turn. And I think that while he has just a really high skill ceiling, so he's not going to be the easiest thing to pick up right away.
Yeah.
And I like this leader a lot. I think your placement is fine. I know some people might say he's better in Ari. Personally, I think Ari's worse. I think Ari is overrated a lot by a lot of the more casual audience. But at a competitive level, I think Yasuo has something that would make you pick him as opposed to like Ari, which is like, it just kind of exists. So
Yeah, and the one thing that we kind of have glossed over is the signature spell, and I think the also signature spell is pretty strong. And I think it's effectively the same ability as the green Yasuo, where you just like deal damage to a unit, and you have some pretty big units in this deck that can take the full advantage of that. Yeah, we get into Misfortune, orange purple. This is effectively an Aurora deck almost exclusively at this point. But you have like some really strong payoff that Yasuo doesn't in the form of Mind Splitter, which is just an absurd card that you get to play for free off the top of your deck. In my opinion, this is the best Aurora deck just due to that interaction alone. On top of being able to play Dead Bloom Predator, like your payoff for Aurora is very strong, and you have a lot of forms of ramp. I think your early game is just a little bit weaker in this deck compared to some other ones. Like some Aurora Yi lists that I've seen are still playing the low cost unit just because like you can't afford to like sacrifice those first 4 points. But you do obviously have a lot of utility in the Misfortune deck. You're able to draw consistency with some of the purple cards, like there's Scrap Heap and Inverted Timelines are able to dig. So I think there are selling points to this deck. I think, again, best Aurora deck, but it is at the end of the day only an Aurora deck, which can come with some really big issues post-side where people are prepared for you, and in general I think it's just like maybe a little bit less consistent than some other variants. So what are your thoughts?
yeah, I actually spent some time on this. I took this to a couple locals. I hated the deck. I loved it when I was testing it online, but then I actually went in person and played versus some competent players, and it feels very, very bad when you're playing against a good player who understands the mechanics and that they're not just going to leave stuff for you to clear for free. They're going to make the most out of their advantage. And then your deck like has a bit of a problem with actually removing stuff. You have literally like Dead Bloom and Misfortune signature spell for like hard removal.
Yeah, that
When I
spell's
say
good.
hard, I
Very
mean
good spell.
actually removing something from the board. And
Yeah.
purple is good at moving stuff around, but this comes back to the problem where, like with I said with Teemo, where they shove a 20 something might Mundo, and your options are fight or flight, and like a rebuke if you play it, and you just kind of lose. So
Hmm.
even though you got up to the Aurora, they got 5, 6 points before you even played the game, and then you just lose. And this doesn't even keep like account for post side. I think the deck is insanely bad post side
Yeah.
because if you're playing versus a yellow deck, they're gonna play salvage, which is just you lose the game for 2 runes. Uh,
Yeah.
there's the Kaisa deck, which has I technically Thermo Beam exists. I think it's bad. I think the better way to beat it is you just side in time warps and you win the game off points by going aggressive early. Um, it's just really, really rough for you post side because everyone has answers for your deck, and you are not even a guaranteed win if you hit Aurora. And not only
Hmm.
this, but MF, like her ramp is not as consistent as like Yi, who has like Find Your Center,
Yeah.
which is like
Or
again
the other
such a
Aurora deck, which is Volibear, right?
true.
Which I think this leader will eventually get good. Maybe not just because like it's kind of like a little bit of a slow start, but like the leader ability again, we've talked about cards that like just work inherently, and this is just like when you play a 5 might unit, you just get to ramp, which kind of like facilitates your game plan of like I just want to drop big units, and both of the volleyball units are both pretty strong. This color combination is not bad. Like I think this honestly could contend for the best Aurora deck. I think the issue with it currently is consistency. Like you said, Misfortune also has that problem. But like you have a lot of payoff. You also have a lot of removal, which is the issue that Misfortune has. Where Falling Star, and there was a list that we saw in the Runes and Rifts tournament that played like ballistas and a fair amount of removal. So I think this deck is neat. I think again probably is too inconsistent to function in the current meta, but at some point if this deck ended up taking down to some like local tournaments, it wouldn't surprise me at all. I think it has a lot of potential.
Yeah, I like the idea of volley. I think that personally, I actually like it more as an Aurora deck than MF, just because when you hit Aurora, it's stronger. Like your units are just better because you have
Yeah,
access to some more powerful stuff. Like the red volley is absurd. Volleybear
yeah.
Furious, Deflect 2 is and doing damage on attack, just insane unit. I think its biggest issue is maybe maybe I disagree a little bit with what you said in that I think the deck's issue actually is the consistency. Is that if you want to utilize the Volibear Legends ability, you have to dilute your deck with some
Yeah.
kind of bad 5 might units that you can play before you hit Aurora. Like Buccaneer is like one of the main ones. You can pay it for
Mhm.
4 by discarding a card. But the more you put of these in your deck, then the less likely you are to get good hits off of Aurora. So you have this like kind of annoying spot where you either put in bad units for Aurora and you make your Aurora worse and then you ramp faster, or you ramp faster but your Aurora is worse. And then your colors don't actually have any ramp in them beyond like the Catalyst Mobilize. Like red gives 0 ramp right now. Maybe it'll have some in the future. Whereas
I
all
hope
of
not.
the other Aurora decks, as far as I'm aware, have like at least some secondary ramp. Uh, I think that this is a very RNG deck like Darius, except it has the highest payoff in the game if you do RNG, just because your power level is so insanely high, but your floor is so insanely low. You can just lose the game and get 0 points because you didn't draw Aurora, you draw these big units, and your
Mhm.
opponent played an aggro deck. So I
Yeah.
think it just has straight unwinnable matchups versus like a competent Victor or Darius player, which is
Mhm.
really not what you want to see as a deck you're planning to take to an event. So I agree with your placement.
Yeah. And last but not least is Leona, which I guess it may be least. I think this deck is pretty underwhelming. The color combination is okay, not great. Like I don't really know like what the selling point for this deck is over anything in like I would put in like A, B, or S tier.
So the one thing Leona does have going for it is that she does have a decent Yi matchup, and that the Leona champion unit and a lot of the support cards that stun do like it when you put a single unit on a battlefield because you just go, okay, I'll stun your one unit and then attack in. That's
Mhm.
really all she has going for her is you have a decent E matchup. I think, like you said, it's pretty underwhelming, and she's lacking support right now more than anything. I think that if the deck does see more stun support, it might be decent, but right now it is held back by the fact that the stun support is just bad. So you're forced to put like so many bad cards in your deck that just fill it out if you do want to actually take advantage of your leader and your champion units. And if you don't, then you're just playing like the pile of good yellow and green cards. In which case, like, sure, I guess, but then you're just playing without a leader. So
All right, so I think this is pretty reasonable discussion. Hopefully, we gave a lot of people perspective over a lot of like the lower decks and why we place them where they are. Final thought: when you look at this list, what deck or what leader do you think will make the biggest jump moving forward? Either like a thing that you either will move from like A to C after set 2, or will make the jump from somewhere down below up to the top.
I think that Yi is going to plummet eventually. I think that he is a symptom of the game being simple right now. The card pool is not big, so just having big stat sticks is good. I think Yi is definitely going to fall in the future. I think for a deck that will go up, I think that probably, and I'm a bit biased here, I think the Yasuo deck could go up. I think that the Yasuo leader ability is really solid. It lets you do things that you normally wouldn't be able to do. And I like the color combination. I think for a less biased deck that I think could go up is I think that the set deck could go up a lot just because the set leader ability is really powerful. Both his champion units, great. His signature spell, great. The deck just needs more ways to have cards and better buff units, which are things that I think should be filled out by the card pool as we get more battlefields, maybe more battlefields that say like you win a combat, you draw a card, stuff like that. And his ability just is not replicatable, right? So he does something unique. So those are my thoughts. What about you?
Yeah, I think that's. I mean, Yi, I think is the easy thing to point to. Like you said, like beginning big number is good because there's less cards to remove big number. So, and then the color combination I think is solid, but like we'll see what happens when other decks have good top end. Like when Dead Bloom is not just the most oppressive 8-drop unit in the game, we'll see how good orange actually is. Because I think right now it's maybe towards the middle of the pack, but really carried by that type of a card. If you want to like look at card decks that are capable of jumping. I think Lux, I don't think it's ever going to be like an S or A tier deck, but I think it could jump up to like a solid B tier deck once you get a little bit more consistent removal in the blue side of things. And then I think Darius actually at some point in the future probably becomes just like a very, very good aggro deck. Like once the card pool becomes good enough that you don't have to rely on baited hook to function, just being able to reduce the cost of everything so consistently I think is a very strong leader ability. So right now I think that is where I'm at. I agree also could move up. I think this Ari deck eventually becomes like C or D tier. Like it doesn't have anything that I'm super impressed by in terms of what it does. So yeah, I think that's a pretty solid discussion. Yeah, let us know your thoughts. Anything like this you want to see us go about. I've got something planned in the future for battlegrounds where I'm going to kind of rank them and identify the points that they're good in. So may have Fritz back on for that. We'll see how we're feeling. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.